Joining us right now is one of America's most successful female entrepreneurs.
Special guest speaker today, the first African-American woman
to own a billion-dollar company. Her name is
Janice Bryant Howroyd. She's the founder and CEO of
Act One is one of the largest staffing companies in the United States.
She's now ranked by Forbes as second wealthiest self-made African-American woman in America, behind only Ms. Oprah Winfrey.
She spent almost 40 years helping others find work.
Janice, great to have you on the show.
Wonderful to be
Thank
here.
you so much for joining us.
Janice, welcome to the program.
Janice, what about your point?
My guest today is Brittany Salone.
Hello.
Hey, Brittany, out there in Vegas, how you doing?
Doing glorious. Couldn't be better.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, I know you're all hunkered in. I'm doing the same myself here in sunny Southern California. Could tell me a little bit, because there's so much we can talk about. I want to make sure I get this covered. Tell me a little bit about where you were when you actually got the news about COVID-19.
I was actually here at the Batcave, like normal. I watch the news every day. I watch Bloomberg every day, so I'm constantly aware of what is going on. So I was here on my couch and I was super shocked. I mean, I heard about it when it first, when we got case zero. So in December, January, I was hearing about the numbers, and then I started to do the math in my head. And that's when it really started to raise red flags. So I knew it was an exponential increasing type of illness. So it forced me to really reach out to my family a lot more, to be creative, to tell the people you love that you love them.
Well, even before we go there, and we're definitely going there, okay?
Oh,
this is JBH,
totally.
so we're going to go there.
Absolutely.
But the reason I ask you where you were to set the place for me when you first heard about it is because I'm immediately interested in what was your response to that. So many people who listen to this podcast are millennials. They're young working people, and even younger, the Zen groups as well. So I want to know how it impacted you. Were you ready for it? You did mention that you were already a news watcher and you already consumed Bloomberg, and I know you happen to be like a big Bloomberg consumer. So I'm sure you may have been more aware than some people. However, I want to know how it impacted you when you first heard about it, because then we're going to go into a conversation about what you did about that.
Okay. So how it impacted me at first is ever since moving out here to Nevada, I see my family on a monthly basis. So whenever they come out here, we normally go to dinner or we hang out, listen to music. And so I always look forward to those times. So that number one hit me, that first call to my mom, like, Mom, like, when do you think you'll be out here again? Now that all this is going on, she wasn't sure. And then in January and February, I was trying to plan a trip back to LA to surprise my dad for his birthday, because his birthday is in March. And so being that one of my aunts works for in the flight industry, we would always check, and she would always check for me on, if it was a good time to come, if it wasn't a good time to come. And then this just totally threw off our plans completely. So it definitely made me get out of my comfort zone in terms of like communication with family.
So quick stop.
Yep.
Tell me, where were you? What impact did it have on you when you knew, wait a minute, this is big, this is real?
I was here at home. I would say the impact it had on me, I was prepared, thank God. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a doomsday prepper, but I'm definitely someone who, likes to plan strategically for the future. So,
well, I can see you got a lot of books behind you, so I know that wasn't going to be the challenge.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, and that's one of your favorite rules is, never sell your school books. So even during this time, I've gone back and I've been reading through my accounting and finance books and stuff like that, which we'll get to later, things to do during quarantine. But yeah, it impacted me seeing my family, which is huge, because this is the first time out of 30 years of me being around that I've lived out of state or lived further than 20-25 miles away from my family. So that really hit me. And then my stepfather being a fire captain and my brother going on to soon become a firefighter, that definitely was a shocker. I was just like, okay, how are they going to be impacted? Do they have all the resources they need? So it definitely changed how
And
much
wow,
I
the work
communicate.
they do for people, because, I live out here on the peninsula. And so
Mhm.
when I am outside, I pretty much am still removed from people, so I can take glorious walks without ever
Right.
leaving my property. But oftentimes, Brittany, I will walk from my home to my gate, to one of my community gates. That
Right.
to the gate and back is just short of 4 miles.
That's
And
a
I
workout.
pass by, yeah, and I pass by our fire station. It's a small fire station, and the
Mhm.
firemen in there know us by name.
Right.
And they've served this community a long time. A lot of elderly people live in my community, and they've
Right.
come out for emergencies other than fires. And so they do drills, and we vote at our fire station for
Mhm.
those of us who still vote in person. And
Right.
there's just such a community relationship. But a lot of people don't have that relationship with emergency
Mhm.
responders. And so for me, just knowing they're there, and knowing they're there in the way they are to give rescue or to give resuscitation to people is huge. But
Mhm.
folks who don't live in that kind of community don't have that level of comfort and relationship. Let's
Right.
get really personal. Where you live right now, do you have that type of relationship with folks?
Not really, because I am an introvert. Most people would never believe me if I said that.
Right. And I've known you all your life, and that's still kind of hard for me to grab,
Right.
but I get where you're coming from, girl. Go on.
Right. So I'm very much an introvert. So my mom and I, we were talking this morning, and we were kind of joking. She's like, Brittany, you've been social distancing for like 2 years now. I'm not worried about you because you don't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that part of it, I mean, I definitely, speak to the folks in my neighborhood, and, speak to the folks in the front office. But, they've really had to like change their routines as well, because they can't really put themselves in a situation where they're going to, contract a virus or be around a lot of germs. So, yeah, for me, I'm an introvert. So this isn't really like a huge change of pace. It's just more so allowed more time for self-reflection. It's allowed more time for me to, sharpen my axe, as you would say, as Abraham Lincoln would say, more specifically.
And it's really important that we talk a little bit about that, because I happen to know that you have depression, and you're clinically diagnosed with depression. You have such a beautiful way of putting a good face on everything, and you have your
Thank you.
public face. If you don't mind, there are a lot of people who aren't as accomplished as you are in moving themselves forward with depression. Let's talk a little bit about how this moment we're living through right now is impacting you in terms of dealing with your depression, where you gained any strengths from it, and honestly, where you haven't been as successful as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I've definitely struggled with that for quite some time. I would say it was probably, when my grandmother passed. So I definitely had to, get creative with how I was going to express those emotions. So there's a famous quote by Kurt Cobain where he says, "Thank you for the tragedy. I needed it for my art." And so as a painter,
I know that. I know
right.
that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So as a painter, once I finally gave myself permission to paint several years ago, I would do what was called music meditation time. And this is something you taught me when I first started college.
Right.
You shared with me like the scientific benefits of what you're listening to and how important music is.
And to listen to the music that takes you where you want to go.
Exactly. And meditation, and so
one pause, Britt, for
Sure.
for all of our listeners right now.
Sure.
Brittany happens to be my niece, and so for an early part of her adulthood, probably part of her teenage life as well.
Yeah.
Brittany lived with me. And during that time, she said it was like coming into a warm nest, but it also felt like boot camp. So I want people to understand, because you continue to make references to things I've taught you. And let's be candid, you've taught me a lot as well. So, so you were talking about when I taught you about listening to the music that takes you where you want to go, using music as therapy.
Right. Right. Music is like, my oxygen. And for so long, you are, my idol. So much of what I was doing is, wanting to be an entrepreneur, wanting to be in business, wanting to be in that traditional corporate world. And it was so funny, I would go out in public and be social, and folks would say, like, the common conversation of like, what do you do for a living? And I would always be like, I'm in marketing. And they would be like, yeah, right. Like, you're a musician. There's no way that, you work in an office building. And so after hearing that, for so long, I finally gave myself the permission to start to do the things that I love, even though I'm not great at them, in the beginning.
Well, let's define that. You're great at them as long as they are delivering to you the things that you enjoy. Maybe what you mean is you're not commercially successful at them right now.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. Not yet. It's going to take some time.
You're on your road.
Right. And so that's been huge in helping me with, the character building superpower is what I would say. Depending on how you want to tap into whether you see it as a mental illness or not, you have the choice to tap into that, to transmute that energy into something positive. So anyone who's ever read The Alchemist, or if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. But it definitely goes into detail about, bending energy for a more positive purpose. So that's helped out a ton. I would say another thing that this virus has kind of pulled out of me is, communicating with my family more directly. Most of the time I'm just working hard, like nose to the grindstone, texting, but really, during this time period, it's forced me to like send more voice memos, send your family videos, looking back at pictures of you and your family of good moments, that can really help bring good energy into your space. Another big thing that I started doing about, I guess it was about 3 years now, is I used to do this thing called, and I probably should do it tomorrow, Feng Shui Fridays. And it was a day where I would just play really good music after work, and I would just assess something you talk huge about, assess my environment. Is this the type of environment that is going to help me condition myself to become the person I want to become? A lot of times we don't take the time for self-care. And so self-care is huge with dealing with any character building experiences.
And along with that environment that needs to feed you, I think that it's important for you to share a little bit about your relationship to books. I mean, you have books right behind you. And I remember when you first, even before you moved into my home, in your earlier stage of life, you would come by and you would always say, Auntie, you have so many books. Do you really read all those books?
Yep. And you have
my mom used to say association brings on assimilation. Now I see all of these books and I'm like, whoa, that's my little mini me there. However, you are your own you. So talk about your books as friends.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I miss them so much. Like I didn't really make the time to read them because I have read like at least like 93% of them. I've counted them. But during this time, it's given me time to like go back and like actually read them. So it's like one of my favorite books that, after you live some life and you actually understand how hard it is as a woman, as a minority, as anyone to earn money for yourself. I went back and read Madam C.J. Walker's book, On Her Own Ground. And I'd first gotten it when I was 17. But when you're that young, you there's not a lot about life that you really, really, really know. And so it was so cool to be able to watch her series that LeBron executive produced on Netflix and be able to read the book. Because me and you were the same in terms of, we like the books. The books are always better it's nice to have a visual
Yeah, but it was
representation
great
too.
when you texted me and said, "Wow, Auntie, so now I see why she's your shero."
Yes, yes. Being able to see it is, unlike anything. I mean, I love,
When integrity
films.
is given to the production.
Absolutely, absolutely. When it's done right, it's a beautiful thing when people, remake books, because in this day and age, our attention spans can be pretty short. So being able to go back and read the book, and there's so many more details in the book, like her family tree and where she came from, and the fact that she was a slave and then she went on to become the first millionaire as a woman was just unreal. And when
Mind you, I've read that she was the first woman to become a self-made millionaire, not just Black woman, but woman. That's what
wow.
I read now.
Ooh.
So we have to
Oh.
fact check that. But on any terms, it's a success. And when you consider where that was at that time, exponentially count what that is today. Quite an incredible person.
Yes, yes. And the context of where we were as a country at that time really puts it into perspective a lot more. So
let's shift a little bit and bring it to where we are as a country today, and how women are succeeding or, striving today. Let's talk a little bit about your perspective on that and what you think, because Madam C.J. Walker certainly is a prime example for her time. She can be quite an inspiration for our time as well. What are you seeing right now in this moment of COVID? And I say moment very optimistically. What are you seeing for women in this time? And how connected are you, being the introvert you are?
Very connected. Very, very connected. One of my other, mentors when I was very young, was from the film world. And, she taught me, and even my grandfather, he would always read the newspaper every single day. My mom taught me, read the news, and you're going to get ideas as long as you read the news and you stay aware. And in terms of women right now in this state of our culture, I believe that number one, they're having the opportunity to pivot, to create wealth for themselves and their families in a way that they never could before, or maybe didn't have the time, or, their coattails are being pulled in many directions from whoever they work for. Another thing that I see for women that is just so beautiful is that teachers are being so much more appreciated. My mother's a teacher. And so to hear, I watch a lot of different podcasts to get a lot of different perspectives. I mean, that's the most responsible thing to do. And to hear how much people are appreciating teachers has really opened my eyes.
And your mom does not teach in one of the more exclusive school districts. So the work that she does as a teacher goes beyond textbook and classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really does. My mom works, she works in a neighborhood that is not the best, where the kids may or may not have the best resources. And so she's having to pivot as a teacher to really sharpen her technological skills. But she's also an entrepreneur too. So it's all that she's able to, learn and leverage from the technology that she has to, ingest to be able to teach her students remotely. She's able to use that in her other passions. So I think that's really cool for women now. And just bringing to light how important women are. I mean, it can be funny sometimes in podcasts where, I've seen a few podcasts where it's the husband and the wife, and the wife is just kind of cracking up at how challenged the husband is by little things like being on Zoom or unfolding a table. Yeah. And the things that women do every single day, right? Like cooking food and making sure kids are picked up from school and all these things, multitasking basically. So it's been a little bit of a crack up to see men whoa.
Oh, Britt, let me tell you something that's really funny happening over here. It's funny to me. I don't know that it's funny to everybody else. So we were having a conversation last week because we've been kind of quarantined together with Uncle Bernie. And for my listeners, my husband Bernie is in what they tell me is the 6th phase of a 7th-phase disease called Alzheimer's. And so we're really blessed that he tends to have a lot of humor, because we've been told also that that very often with Alzheimer's. People will go the opposite of their pre-Alzheimer's personality. I'm really grateful that his personality is still in check, and that even when he's using his own special language, you still know when he's telling a joke, and he's just such a delight to be around. So we're really grateful that this 86-year-old man has his mobility and his sense of humor, even when his language fails him. He recognizes us, but then again, we chide ourselves and say, well, maybe he doesn't, because he likes everybody right now, and everybody is kissable. So we've got Bernie, and we've got Christy, we've got my son Brett, we've got me, and we've got our home friend Mama Raina. And we're sitting at the table together, and we're talking about at lunchtime whether people are cooking or not, and where these families who get fast food, how they're dealing. And the question came up around the value of cooking and whether people have time for it. And so I was defending that you can cook at night and you can feed your family cheaper, a lot cleaner and more healthy if you choose to cook at home. Even when you're busy, you just have to learn to be better time managers. And I got big argument back against that no, fast food is just really, you got to excuse the moms and let them give kids fast foods. And so I decided to test that theory, Brittany. And this week, I haven't cooked lunch a single day. Wow. And folk around here going crazy, girl.
I know they are.
You shouldn't change your truth. If you love cooking, you love it. And I'm like, just because I don't argue about it doesn't mean it's easy, and so I've learned that I can be like the young women and not cook anymore for those who don't cook. Now I still prepare the nighttime meals, and I don't know how long I'll really hold out without cooking during the day. But when you're talking about discovering pleasures and discovering challenges and turning them both into work for you, helping them to help you evolve and explore yourself more fully, like your mom ingesting technology and then being able to execute that into her other work. I think that's just really a beautiful statement about where we are right now. And I'm one of those people who thinks no matter what's going on, you find wonderful inside of it. So you're really speaking to my soul in some of the things you're saying. How else are you seeing that people in general can enjoy this time toward a future versus experience it negatively in its present?
I would say, number one, try to limit the amount of news that you take in, so give yourself okay, I'm going to watch the PBS NewsHour, every night just to get my daily dose to see what's going on. Try not to go overboard because that can bring you down a bit. Also too, creating a schedule for yourself, but making sure that you carve out time for the things that you love, time to be creative in whatever way you define creativity. Creativity doesn't have to be painting. It doesn't have to be making music, but making time for that is huge, is really huge.
Hey, Britt, you have a lot of friends who work differently before COVID than they are in COVID, mainly working from home.
Right.
So for your friends who WFH, are they interested now in going back into those offices and can hardly wait to get there? Or are they finding newfound joy in working from home? Where is that catch in it?
I would say, speaking for myself, I'm a huge proponent of, working remotely, working from home, having the freedom to work from wherever. I love it. Ever since I first
moved. For a lot of folks, that's working from kitchen, right?
Right. Working from the kitchen, working from the couch, wherever you find your most productive environment. For me, ever since I moved, I was very adamant and I was very patient about, finding opportunities that allowed me to work from the environment that I wanted to work from. That was huge. And for my friends, a lot of them are so talented in so many different ways, in so many different facets, and so many different mediums. And so what I'm hearing from them is that they are, revisiting things that they didn't have the time to make time for. So for example, one of my friends is an executive producer on a popular show, but she's also an incredible musician, right? She can do everything from the mixing to the singing to the writing. And so for years now, I've been asking her, like, have you been making music? You know, what's going on with that? And now what I'm hearing is folks, millennials like ourselves, they're going back into their passions that they kind of put off or put on the back burner because they have more time. Because, you know, if you just do the basic math of, like, for example, someone in Los Angeles, you know, when I lived there and was commuting can take up 3 hours of your day every single day. That's 15 hours a week. And then also the energy that it pulls from you, you know, depending on how you engage while you're, you know, in traffic. If you are a person to get mad, or you're like Uncle Bernie and you listen to audiobooks, it can really drain you. So those little hours, I mean, that's a lot of time that you can invest in something that you love, you know, that you never thought you'd have the time to do.
I so agree with you. Another thing that a lot of my younger friends are talking about is how they are using this moment to live a better life than they ever had before. And I think a lot of what you've just discussed kind of leans in on that. What's better for you now that you are legitimately hunkered in and not self-imposed quarantine?
Right. This might make you a little jealous, but sleeping more, finally, because I'm like you in that, you know, I'm a morning owl and a night owl, you know, morning bird and a night owl. So I've really been trying to, you know, slow down a bit more and just focus a lot on self-care. You know, I'm the type of person where it's like, my body will keep up with my brain, you know, but that's not true. You know, you really have to, like, treat your body as a temple. And I've also had more time to, you know, work out. You know, we can't go to gyms, but there's so much that you can do from home.
Whether you can follow Dr. John Kim's yoga classes as well. So I really want you to go on YouTube and look at how to follow his yoga classes, because you remember him from acupuncture, but he's really great, and he's got quite a following for his yoga class as well. So go look up John Kim, Dr. John Kim, and follow his yoga classes. One of the things that you made me think about as you were talking, when you were talking about making sure that you're giving self-care and you're sleeping more. He talks about sleep being as important as eating and how you feed yourself. And then he goes on to teach us that we have to talk to our bodies and let our bodies inform what we eat, not let our appetites or our heads inform that. Let me give you a little bit more of a thought on it, because you remember him. He was saying to me that, you know, oftentimes you learn a way to eat. So you need this many proteins in a day. You need this many carbs in a day. That may be true in an academic sense, but what I learned from him is you're an iterative creature. And so you have to feed your body based on your body's own balance of where it is. And what you thought or did in this hour may change where your body is ready to receive food in another hour. So you have to ask your body, you talk to your heart, my sweetheart, what would you like to eat today? You can picture him saying that, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
as he puts his hand on his chest. But he encourages us to ask our bodies what they want, and then to listen. You know how I tell you, no matter who you call God every day, then be quiet and listen. He speaks to your body as that temple you referred to it as. And he teaches you should also talk with your body and ask your body, what would you like to eat today? What will make you breathe better? What will help you to want to get up and run better, to get up and, you know, and so to write better, to read better, to listen better, and then just listen to your body and learn to eat in that way. And so I think that's really good for us to kind of incorporate in what you're talking about, because I'm guessing you're feeling a lot of that too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm very grateful to also have the time to cook more. I don't eat out unless family's here, you know, and we're going to dinner. I'm a big proponent of meal prep, which is like popular in the bodybuilding world, I guess you could say. But it definitely creates like more efficiency. And so just eating healthier and like taking
Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about that for folks who aren't really familiar with what you're saying.
Okay. So when it comes to meal prep, typically you're making meals that are going to last you anywhere from 3 to 5 days, depending on how perishable the items are that you use to cook with. And typically I'll do it on like, a Saturday or a Friday night, where I have like a lot of time that I can dedicate to it.
Friday
So maybe,
night is fun night, under COVID or out of COVID. Friday night is a
Oh,
really
yeah.
fun night to do any kind of prep.
Yep. And, it's where you just like, you're basically, you cook your food in bulk, and then or in the refrigerator, and all you have to do is just heat it up. So you just grab and go. So it can make you a lot more efficient. And for me, I'm not like a huge eater, especially when it's not your food, especially when it's not gumbo, So it helps me to, get the nutrients that I need. You should always be eating for energy, not for taste, as a very wise woman once said. So by doing the meal prep, it takes the thinking out of it. And then I can just focus my energy.
Actually, Britt, what I taught you was you eat to live, not live to eat.
Yes, very true. Very true. And I definitely do that. And then, just having, a few treats here and there. Popcorn is my weakness, so I can't live without
ain't
popcorn.
that a family thing for us?
Yes.
And
so,
home cooked, not microwave popped.
Right. The healthy stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So meal prep has helped.
How much fresh air are you getting?
Not enough, but I'm definitely, as soon as, the sun rises, it could be 10% of the way up, I open the windows, make sure I get, some air, get some breeze in.
Regardless of how much fresh air you're getting in terms of being outside, just the beauty, the gift of being able to breathe your own air, I think for a lot of people is important right now.
Yes. Yeah. And going for walks, huge. You gotta go for walks. You gotta clear your head. I do go for walks daily, even if they're short walks, even if it's just to like, the end of the block, like maybe 1 mile total, up and back. Walks are huge, but just make sure you wear a mask and you have your gloves. Gotta wear a mask. But yeah,
gotta be socially thoughtful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, Britt, let's talk about where young people are right now in terms of how they're looking at the world right before COVID, not just before COVID, but up until COVID. A lot of discussion, we're in the recruitment business, the placement business. A lot of discussion was how young people want to work and how they felt about their companies and their social engagement, how much corporate social responsibility they exercised. How do you think COVID is impacting that thought process, not just for young people, but for everybody, but mainly driven in the media as a young person thing?
I believe that it's changing the way that we are going to work in a way where it's bringing the generational gaps closer, because many people who have studied the science of, how work works, they would tell you there are communication gaps when it comes to generation, the more seasoned generations and Gen Z, millennials.
And you see some bridging? You see some bridging?
Yeah. I would say that we're all starting to see that we're all as one. Because even the guys, my favorite guys, on SportsCenter, my favorite folks on Bloomberg, they're having to do those interviews from home now. You know what I mean? So it's putting everyone kind of on the same playing field.
We're on the same side of the bridge.
Right. Everyone's using, Zoom or Google Hangouts or some form of video conferencing. And I think that once more seasoned executives in their organization spend more time working in the way that their employees are working, they're going to become more aware of its efficiencies, how effective it can be, where they can make improvements, and they're probably going to have a better connection with their employees, because the employee has the time and space to create in the way that they want to.
So, I had a conversation with a couple of my employees. We've been doing a lot of video conferencing, right? And one of the things that one of my employees was saying, and these are executives in my company, this person was saying they find that when they would come into the meetings with me, when we had the meetings in the room, they would keep their cell phone close, and they'd be checking texts or they'd be checking email. And, you know, they considered themselves present, but they were really dealing with what was outside of the room. And now that we're video conferencing, they say they're really zooming in on one another.
Literally.
They are appreciating the flag on your desk, or they're appreciating the flowers outside your window, the books behind you, you know, and they're listening and seeing your face a lot clearer. They're following everybody's emotions differently. So in a way, you know, when we thought that technology was going to separate us and everybody would go into their cave and sit in front of their screen, those aren't just avatars anymore. Now they're your neighbors, your friends. They're the people you're waiting to hug again. And they're really finding the time together more precious, and they're finding more valuable outcome and more efficiency in how they're working. Now, this naturally with some of my execs is about our company culture, but a lot of it is about just where they individually are finding themselves. What are your friends saying in terms of that kind of delivery from technology during this period of COVID?
Yeah, depending on the industry they're in, you know, some of my friends are in the medical space, other friends are in the entertainment space, other friends are, you know, developers and designers like myself, you know, working in the technology space. So I would say the ones that are working in the medical space, of course, are definitely experiencing more challenging times. For them, it's a little bit harder to like get into a routine or rhythm due to the nature of their work. But you know, all my friends that I talk to that are
and let's give a shout out to the emergency responders and the health and the healthcare folks, because we are, and the teachers, we are appreciating people so differently today than we ever did, you know. I like to think I've always been appreciative. I'm certainly heightened in my appreciation, and I'm seeing people actually talking about it and doing about it. You remember our Culver City team and our entertainment team. Girl, they have pulled together and they're out delivering lunches to nurses, and where possible, they're bringing the kids in to be able to lunch with their families in a very quarantined and socially, you know, thoughtful way. And whether that's by Skype or whatever, but allowing, you know, it's just so much going on. So please complete your thought on that. You just really are bringing up so many more thoughts for me as you're talking.
Yeah, and just being more creative to connect with my friends, or another good thing to do to pull yourself out of any type of character building experience you're going through is to collaborate more. You know, the cool thing that I am seeing that I think is so awesome is that, you know, more of the artists, like let's just say musicians, because that happens to be my favorite subject, or filmmakers, you know, they're connecting a lot more directly with their audiences. So this is a time where you can learn so much, you know, and also musicians are getting really creative with, Christy, I'm sure has heard about it, or maybe you too, is like these producer battles. So the producers will go live on, you know, social platforms like Facebook or Instagram, and they'll play some of their greatest hits and their songs that you totally forgot that they, you know, created, but you're also getting to see them in their workspace, which is really inspiring. And also too, I'm finding that more CEOs, executives, or even creators and designers, they're innovating as well. So it's like Adobe, for example. A lot of folks use Adobe Creative Cloud, whether it's to like edit movies, edit photos. So they've had a really cool schedule in terms of having professionals, you know, every day, you know, have like an hour or 2 hour long session where you can really get to know the software. You know,
oh my goodness, you're so right. I mean, even me, you know, I think I'm pretty tech savvy as a non-tech person. I'm not a technologist, please hear me clearly. But we've been exploring more possibility around Airtable and how it helps us in our company, and, you know, managing so many files as we do, and then getting real-time, you know, informative data on it. You know, just it's so incredible all around, where we are exploring different ways to even use what we already had, let alone being introduced to new things. Gotta talk with you a little bit about what you're listening to. What are you listening to?
Oh boy, so much. I would say you know me, I'm an old soul. So I still listen to Prince every day. I have to listen to Prince every day.
Hey, girl, don't kid me. I know you listen to Sam Cooke too, and that's even
yes,
a
Sam
little bit
Cooke
more old soul
every
than
day.
Prince.
Yes, Sam Cooke every day, especially his live album. And during this time, I'm definitely listening to What's Going On, Marvin Gaye.
My favorite album of all time. Favorite song. What's my favorite song?
God Is Love.
Imagine, John Lennon.
Imagine. Okay.
And
Okay,
then my favorite album of all time is What's Going On. So what track are you really playing on that?
God Is Love. I mean, that one's huge. The other one is Flying High. I think that one's huge. But Flying High without ever being in the air. And just really like deconstructing that album. Because now that I am attempting to create some sort of music or sound, what happens when you transition into a different form of creativity is you start to be able to identify things in a different way. So when I was younger, I never listened to that album in the way that I'm listening to it now. And then
you listen more to the music when you were younger because you were dancing to it a lot. And I was present when you were younger. So I saw what was happening. Now you're going deep into the story, into the message, into the context, teaching, and the context, especially within which we find ourselves today. How many times over the life of that song do you imagine that song has been so relevant to what's going on? Yeah,
it's huge. And Marvin has a quote, I may butcher it, forgive me, Marvin. But he has a quote where he was saying that during that time, he was just so motivated to write songs that would touch the hearts of men. And I thought that was just so deep. And so I'm listening to more music like that. I don't listen to as much hip hop as I used to.
You're not dissing hip hop.
No,
you're just in a different listening room right now. It's still in the house. You're in a different listening room. Still on the playlist.
Yeah. Oh, and the Strokes just came out with a new album, which is Kate and I's favorite band in the whole world.
I can't wait to tell Kate you're back on the Strokes.
Yes. Yeah. I listen to the Strokes. Honestly, between Prince, Marvin Gaye, Barry White, and the Strokes, I listen to them every day. And Kate introduced me to the Strokes, of course. So we've been really happy to hear that. And it's just cool to hear how musicians are, evolving their sound. And I would say I'm never trying to copy how someone is creating a sound, but it's interesting to try to find that sound that they chose.
Wait a minute. Let's be very intentional because, I taught you words matter. Let's leave try out of it. You're not trying to find, you're searching.
Yes.
Searching is a progressive tense of getting there. Trying never gets you anywhere. It's impossible really to try. So that's not a good word in this context. Right. But go ahead with the thought, girlfriend.
Yeah, I would say the perfect way to describe it would be I'm definitely in a state of searching for sound. So many of the sounds that Prince came up with, a lot of people don't know he was he did the sound effects and the score for Batman in the 80s. And so he's been embedded in our brains, for so long. And so much.
Imagine if he could have done that Panther, but go ahead.
Yeah, that would have been incredible. And so searching for sound has been a very fun process because there's so many and it takes so much time to find them. So it's been very cool to try to like identify. Hey, do you remember what I used to tell you, as I've told many others? There are only 7 notes and we create so many. You remember that? You remember that? Listen to you now giving that back to me in your own life experience. You are giving me such an amazing time right now. Thank you for that. I'm happy I can. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, so another thing that I remember telling you is that when you watch a video medium, that in particular in movies, that you will dig into movies for the light or you'll dig in for the dark, and they both help you. What are you watching? What am I watching? I'm a that huge... you care to share. When you know what a person's listening to and when you know what they're watching,
you get a very intimate view and a visit with them. So only as you care to share.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would say what I'm watching right now, I watch a lot of YouTube. Like I'm a big YouTuber. I stopped paying for cable maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and there's so much on YouTube. So I'm a huge fan of documentaries normally. And so a lot of the content that I find and watch is
Thank you. Self-correcting.
Yeah, I learned quick. Is in the realm of like behind the scenes of how folks are creating. So a documentary that I hadn't saw previous is called 808, and it's on Apple Music. It's free, or well, you have to pay for the subscription, but you can find it on Apple Music, and it's about the 808 drum and that machine, how it was created, how much it's impacted our music, moving forward. And so I'm a super nerd when it comes to like, the engineering of the machines and like who came up with this idea. And Kanye, he's one of my favorite producers of all time. So how much he used 808 in his music, I'm very interested in finding out who motivated the person that I admire so much, learning more about them. So like in your case, it's like, I was very interested in finding out, okay, Auntie, who motivated you? Outside of just, your mother and father, finding out it's Madam C.J. Walker. So doing a deep dive into her. So thankfully there's more content available about her. So watching that.
Have you noticed how few pictures there are of her on the internet though?
Yes, because I did a search for quotes.
They have been so
shocked.
engaged in so many things and to support so many causes. She truly was about the work she was doing and not about herself. And having been in the beauty and the image and the self-esteem business, that she wasn't putting more pictures out of herself. That's just an amazing testimony, even further to who she was and who she was not, and how she continues to live. I'm not going to keep you here all day, although I could, and I look forward to. Hey, look, Boo! I look forward to doing that very soon. Okay,
yes,
I am optimistic that we're coming out of this. What are the thoughts that you lullaby yourself with now?
I would say gratitude. Gratitude is the biggest thing. Gratitude, love, prayer. Jesus always comes first in my life. So just being grateful, and just always thinking positive thoughts for my family.
And what do I teach you about calling God? What have I taught you?
It doesn't matter who you call God. Just make sure you call him every day.
And then be quiet and listen. It's been my pleasure to listen to you, little one. I just love you so, so much.
I love you more.
I think you got a lot of sunshine coming from inside your heart. So whether you got any coming inside your window or not, a lot of it's coming from inside your heart. Thank you for sharing with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Dream come true.
Before we say goodbye, what you going to be listening to tonight, Britt?
Ooh, tonight I might have to do... what's that song that I was listening to? I started to make you a new playlist, but then you told me that you love Spotify's.
Girl, I am so on Spotify. Now, let me tell you, I'm old school, so I'm kind of like that person who's buying Bitcoin and still keeping money under the bed. So I do keep downloading my Apple and buying the music. And I'm also going on Spotify and downloading the music. I'm having a ball with my iPad right now. I'm talking with you from my iPad. What you going to be listening to, Boo?
I'm going to be listening to the Brothers Johnson. The Strawberry Letter 23. And probably that funk. They were in that documentary.
What you going to be watching in the morning?
I would say Life in Waves. That's one of my new favorite documentaries. It's about Suzanne Ciani. She was a famous sound designer. She designed everything from like the I want to say it's the sound effect for like the Coke or Pepsi top to designing stuff for like Star Wars or something like that. So I love watching that movie because it just inspires me to focus, on my dreams.
Yes, your day started right. And then what you going to be eating?
I am going to be eating. Make sure no one eats meat because the plants, they had folks that were infected. So I'm probably not going to be eating that much meat.
Well,
a lot
I'm
of
not going to
spinach.
make sure of that because I know a lot of people who really live for it. But I'm sure a lot of people are going to be hearing what you're saying and having some comment about it. So you're going to be eating a plant-based dinner, and then
and some bacon, a little bacon.
But that ain't meat, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, boo. And what are you going to be praying about that you can share?
The biggest thing that I pray for is our heroes that are on the front lines, because they don't have all of what they need to be protected. And so I pray for, my godfather, my stepfather. A lot of the older men in my life are firefighters, and my brother is on the cusp of becoming one. So just praying for their safety, and we have close family friends who are nurses and doctors. So just praying for their safety, and I pray that folks are able to find peace within themselves during this time. It takes just as much energy to be positive as it does to be negative. So I pray that people are able to get in touch with what they love during this time.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, you know what? I'm so glad I'm staying in touch with what I love and who I love. And you are way big on that list. Love you, boo.
Love you too.
Thank you for being here. Let's talk again.
Thank you, Auntie. Absolutely. Anytime. I'm here.
Okay.